right, let's jump right into this explainer. Today, we're unpacking the wild, complex world of anabolic steroids. We're going on a journey that takes us all the way from intricate cellular biology down to the profound impacts of modern internet culture. It's a topic that gets highly misunderstood, yet it's incredibly relevant in today's society. So here's a massive question we really need to ask. Are those crazy, totally unattainable physical standards we see all over our feeds fueling a brand new epidemic of teenage body dysmorphia? When you're constantly scrolling through a sheer volume of artificially enhanced physiques, it is so easy for a young person's perception of what is naturally possible to get completely skewed. Get this. Recent data shows a staggering 25% jump in steroid use among 12 to 17-year-old boys. And here's the real kicker. A study found that 20% of these young men are taking these powerful drugs literally just to look good. Not for sports, not for a competitive edge. The pursuit of an aesthetic has become the primary driver. Here's our roadmap for today. We'll hit 1. Chasing unattainable physical perfection. 2. The science of steroids. 3. Medical marvel to epidemic. 4. The physiological toll. And finally, 5. The psychological cost. Kicking things off with Section 1, chasing unattainable physical perfection, the modern cultural context. So who is actually taking these things today? You might picture some elite athlete trying to cheat the system, but that's actually a total myth. Over 78% of users aren't even athletes. We're looking at middle-class guys, usually around 25 years old, non-competitive bodybuilders who just want to look a certain way. And instead of talking to doctors, they're getting their info straight from internet forums and friends, which often promote some seriously questionable and unsafe practices. Moving right along to Section 2, the science of steroids, cellular pharmacology. To really grasp why these drugs pack such a punch, and frankly, why they're so dangerous when misused, we've got to zoom way down to the cellular level. Anabolic-androgenic steroids, or AAS for short, are basically synthetic variations of the male sex hormone, testosterone. But here's the crucial part. Unlike water-soluble hormones that have to knock on the outside of a cell door to send a signal, AAS are fat-soluble. That means they just breeze right through the cell membrane, straight into the cytoplasm and nucleus. Once they're in, they bind to androgen receptors and literally alter gene expression, instantly cranking up protein synthesis and totally blocking muscle breakdown. Now, these drugs trigger two overlapping effects. You've got the anabolic side, that's the muscle growth, protein synthesis, and bone remodeling. Then you have the androgenic side, which drives the masculinizing stuff like vocal cord changes and body hair growth. For decades, scientists have been trying desperately to split these two apart, so you only get the muscle-building benefits. But the reality is, in humans, they are fundamentally locked together. You just cannot have one without the other. Which brings us to Section 3, medical marvel to epidemic, the duality of AAS. It's super important to remember that in a strictly controlled hospital setting, these drugs are absolute medical marvels. We are talking critical, life-saving care. For example, oxandrolone is used to help severe burn victims recover by stopping muscle wasting. They're used for bone marrow stimulation in aplastic anemia, preserving lean mass in cancer and AIDS patients, and treating boys distressed by delayed puberty. When used therapeutically, they are incredibly potent and effective medicines. But because so many people abuse them just for the cosmetic looks, they are heavily controlled. In a lot of places, they're classified as Schedule III controlled substances. That means the government recognizes they have medical use, but they also have a massive potential for abuse and dependence. Sadly, this heavy regulation means a lot of everyday users end up turning to the shadows of the black market. And that leads to incredibly unsafe practices, like using counterfeit drugs or sharing unsterilized multi-dose vials and needles. Let's dive into Section 4, the physiological toll, the cost to the body. Okay, so what actually happens when healthy people bypass the doctor and start pumping supra-physiological doses, sometimes vastly exceeding what the body produces naturally, into their system? The physical toll is absolutely staggering. High doses of oral steroids can completely trash your liver, leading to a terrifying condition called peliosis hepatis, which involves blood-filled cysts in your liver. On top of that, your overall cardiovascular efficiency gets permanently damaged. Your good HDL cholesterol plummets, and your heart physically changes. You can develop left ventricular hypertrophy, which massively shoots up your risk for heart attacks and sudden cardiac death. Oh, and for teens, it can prematurely fuse their bones, literally stunting their growth forever. And here is a really wild paradox. Because of an enzyme we have called aromatase, when a guy takes way too much synthetic testosterone, his body actually converts the excess into estrogen. So, ironically, guys often end up developing breast tissue, a condition called gynecomastia. It's the exact opposite of what they were going for. On the flip side, women taking these drugs undergo profound and often irreversible masculinization. We're talking permanent voice deepening, excessive body hair growth, and clitoral enlargement. All of this triggers a massive internal disruption in what's called your HPG axis. Think of it like this. The second you flood your system with artificial hormones, your brain senses the overload and hits the emergency brake. Within weeks, your hypothalamus and pituitary glands just stop sending the normal signals. Give it a few months, and your natural testosterone production completely shuts down, leading to testicular atrophy and outright infertility. Your body basically forgets how to run its own factory. Now let's look at Section 5, the psychological cost, mind and behavior. If we zoom out from the physical body, we absolutely have to talk about what these drugs do to your brain, your behavior, and your relationships. The psychiatric literature is totally clear on this. Flooding your brain with AAS triggers intense mood disturbances. And we aren't just talking about being a little irritable. We're talking about hypomania, this dangerous feeling of absolute invincibility, and of course the infamous roid rage. In extreme cases, abuse has even been linked to full-blown psychosis and suicide. Your brain is just incredibly sensitive to these massive hormonal tidal waves. And the hard data perfectly backs this up. When researchers ran independent sample t-tests on male weightlifters, the spikes were undeniable. The guys actively using steroids scored significantly higher in vulnerable narcissism, grandiose narcissism, physical aggression, hostility, and anger, compared to guys who lift naturally. It's like the drugs completely rewire their psychological profile. It gets even darker when you look at teenagers who dope during those crucial developmental years. The studies reveal a really tragic pattern. Compared to kids who stay natural, the teens who use steroids show way higher rates of depressive symptoms and carry a super pessimistic outlook on life. They struggle a lot more with functioning in the workplace and maintaining normal social relationships, often feeling like they carry a heavier psychological burden and have zero social support. So, what we're left with is this devastatingly dangerous cycle. A teenager feels insecure, maybe deals with body dysmorphia, and turns to steroids as a cure. But the steroid abuse wrecks their natural hormones, so when they try to stop, the total crash in natural testosterone plunges them into crippling withdrawal anxiety and severe depression. The very cure they sought out ends up locking them in a nightmare of mental health struggles and potential neurotoxicity. As we wrap up this explainer today, having walked through the cellular science, the heavy medical damage, and the undeniable psychological toll, I really want to leave you with this. Consider everything we just talked about. Is trading your long-term cardiovascular health, your natural hormonal balance, and your psychological well-being for a fleeting artificial social media aesthetic actually a price you're willing to pay? It's a huge question, and it's one anyone even considering this path absolutely has to answer with their eyes wide open.